This devotion today is about Noah and the flood. I have selected verses from Genesis 6, 7, and 8. The Lord saw the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made humankind on earth, and it grieved him to his heart. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. And Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence. Because of them now, I am going to destroy them along with the earth. Make yourself an ark. Make a roof for the ark. Put the door of the ark on the side. Make the ark with a lower, a second, and a third deck. I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring 2 of every kind of animal in the ark. Make them male and female. Noah did this. He did all that the Lord commanded him to do. But the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and all your household, for in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came upon the earth. The rain fell on the earth 40 days, 40 nights. The flood continued. The waters increased and bore up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. He blotted out every living thing that was on the face of the ground. Human beings and animals and creepy things and birds of the air, they were all blotted out from the earth. Then God had wind blow over the earth, and the waters subsided. Noah opened the window of the ark that he'd made and sent out the raven, and then he sent out a dove, and it came back. He sent it again, but it came back the second time, and its beak was a freshly plucked olive leaf. Then God said to Noah, Go out of the ark. Noah built an altar to the Lord, a burnt offering. The Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I have done. God blessed Noah and his sons, said to them, As for me, I am established my covenant with you and your descendants. This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you. For all future generations, I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. I will remember my covenant. Please join me in a spirit of prayer. Gracious God, open our hearts and minds to hear your word today. We ask for a spirit of healing and hope for all peoples in these uncertain, difficult days. We thank you for your blessings, for your strength. In Jesus' name, amen. You just heard those few verses about the story of Noah, Genesis 6, 7, 8. If you want all the details, go ahead and read them. They're all there. You know, I've never known a shipbuilder except one man. His name was Darwin. It was in my hometown. He was an executive in our telephone company. He was also a taxidermist, you know, the person that people bring an animal to that they have hunted and shot, and you bring it in to the taxidermist. That's Darwin. Now, if it's a big animal, then you bring in only the head. Maybe a deer or an antelope, of course, with the horns. If it's a smaller animal, like a pheasant or a quail or a smallish fish, not a marlin or a king salmon, smaller, he would stuff the whole animal. Only animals that had been hunted and fished for. No pets, no grand champion steers, no special pony. One night, my parents and I were visiting him and his wife, Edna, And whenever I went there, I'd always ask him if I could go to the basement because that's where he did all his taxidermy work. To see the animals that he had finished and were there, but also to see the ones he was in mid-process of working on. And that night I went down, and when I got down there, in the middle of the room was this massive canoe. Oh, yes, he was also a carpenter. It just filled the basement. And the basement entrance down there is a very narrow little pathway, and you have to even turn in it. And I thought, how's he ever going to get that canoe out of that basement? So I went and I asked him, how are you going to get that canoe out? And he just smiled at me and he says, well, it all comes apart. Really? And he said, sure, it'll all break down into very small parts and I'll take it outside and I'll put it together. Now, that canoe was used by his two sons for competition, racing. And they had first place trophies to prove the quality of that homemade canoe. Now, I say this because I think Noah, in the early days and the late days of building this massive ship, had to receive some very interesting comments from his neighbors and his family and his friends. Now, I like how comedians have used the building of the ark for some really creative interactions between God and Noah, like God to Noah. God, I want you to build an ark. Noah, oh, sure. What's an ark? And then God giving the dimensions, 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. Noah, sure. What's a cubit? And then God saying, well, I want you to build this to protect you and your family from the rain. Oh, sure, God, sure. What's rain? Now, for you woodworking types who are listening in, you know that a cubit is not a measurement we use these days. A cubit is the distance from the end of your elbow to the tip of the middle finger in your hand. You don't want to change the builder in mid-project here. Reality, if the builder would have been as big as Samson on this ark, it would have been extremely bigger than it was. But those cubits translate roughly to 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high. The ark was a box-like shape. No rudder, no sail. It looks and appears that it took Noah and his sons 100 years to build that ark. 100 years. Putting up with all those snide remarks of neighbors and friends. You know, I wonder, even at the time of Noah building this ark, do you think the people in the area that were being blessed with newborn baby boys, do you think they probably didn't jump at the chance to name that baby Noah? There aren't a lot of Noahs, although in the year 2014, the number one name for baby boys in the United States was right, Noah. Now, we know what happened. Noah and his family, they entered the ark along with a pair of all the animals known, actually all kinds of creatures, clean and unclean. Noah and the flood, it's a very familiar story, isn't it? Although there was a survey really not that long ago in which they found that 12% of Christians thought that Joan of Arc was married to Noah. Now, Noah was the grandson of Methuselah. He was the father of Shem and Ham and Japheth. It's an estimate that Noah died at the age of 950. So Noah, the family, the animals, they're all inside the ark, and God shut and sealed the door. Now, that's isolation. So how many days did the cruise take? Well, 40 days. But, well, it rained 40 days and 40 nights. But it would have taken quite a while for all the water to recede. Agree? Some estimate it was 110 days. So the 2-hour tour ended up being 150 days. So when Noah and his crew now disembark from the ark, no doubt they would have considerable trepidation because they've just experienced firsthand divine judgment on the earth. Will it happen again? Perhaps Noah needs to build a couple dinghies just in case the rain keeps coming and they could get back to their lifeboat, the ark. What do you think they actually thought when it would cloud up one day and it'd start to rain for a while? Again? God stepped in, making a divine pledge to Noah. The Lord said in his heart and to Noah, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, nor will I ever again destroy every living creature as I just did. As long as the earth endures, seed times and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night, they shall not cease. Then God adds a visual sign of that promise that will serve to remind and comfort all people of this divine covenant. You might call it history's first post-it note, but in this case, a post-it note posted by God to remind God to keep the promise, not to bring back the flood. And there would be plenty of times when he had to be fairly amazingly disgusted with the people to actually think about doing it again. Now, covenant's mentioned 7 times in the book of Genesis. A covenant is a big deal, but this is a real big deal. God declares that the heavens are making an unbreakable unilateral covenant pledge to all creation, to all living things upon the earth. This is an unconditional covenant, an all-embracing covenant. No action or decision is required by any creature on earth in order to validate this covenant. God and God alone stands as the source and the force of this covenant. Now, God then declares a unique feature which sets this covenant apart. It will be marked by a visible physical sign for all to see. This sign will serve to remind God, Noah, and all his descendants of the promise that God has made to all creation. This sign, God declares, is one that comes in a particular shape with multiple colors. Even this bow that we call a rainbow is visible to all the creatures of the earth. It's a sign to God, not humans, a reminder to God of the divine covenant that God has made. The rainbow is actually flood insurance for which we never have to pay a premium. Every time it appears, it serves to remind God, who's our insurance provider, of the anti-flood provisions now that the creation has been promised. Of course, a rainbow has a perfectly rational scientific explanation, refraction of light and light frequencies. Well, if you want to know about all that, just Google it. Now, this sign, the rainbow, is hung in the sky as a sign of God's promises and mercies. And of course, in Jesus, God reframed and reintroduced the rainbow, by declaring that now this Jesus is the ultimate sign of peace, love, and hope. God promises to creation is for redemption, renewal, and harmony. In Jesus, God brought the opposite ends together, the harmony of human and divine, earth and heaven, sinner and saint, lion and lamb, immanence and transcendence. Oh yes, the rainbow is a bridge to the divine, and oh yes, Jesus is the bow that brings redemption and healing to the world. And just as rainbows come amid the ruin and rubble, they come after the rain. And so Jesus is God with us in the ruin and rubble of our lives. Like the song that the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band used to sing, if you want to see a rainbow, you have to stand a little rain. So let it rain, but look for the rainbow, the sign of God's pardon and promise. The word ark appears in Genesis, of course, but only one more time in the book of Exodus. The word was used for the vessel that was put in the bulrushes in which the infant Moses was placed. We know that story. Seems to be an obvious place, right? To hear again of an ark. Noah, then Moses. Now, Noah came along at just the right time in history. Not an easy time, but the right time. The moral fabric of civilization had been deteriorating for several generations. People were still trying to go their own way. We hear it in Genesis 6. The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on earth had become. The Lord was grieved that he had even made man on earth, and his heart was filled with pain. But can you imagine? That was a 24/7 sin emporium, the natural result of a do-my-own-thing society, a world without honesty, kindness, truth, mercy. A vivid picture, I think, of hell on earth. The people who were created in God's image have rejected God's ways. They wanted what they wanted, and they wanted it now. In Noah's time, the people spent their lives pursuing their happiness with no thought of any consequence. The Lord was grieved, his heart was filled with pain. Yet Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, the only one in all creation could be found who was pleasing in God's sight, the only one. We hear Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. He walked with God, and unlike his neighbors, Noah spent time with God. To you, each of you, you are here at just the right time. We are God's gift to our world and our family and our friends. We are here. It's the right time. We're gifted for it. Jesus' words, they need to ring in our hearts and in our minds. I am with you always. It's God's promise to each one of us. Have a blessed day.